The case of Renisha McBride, you may remember this. Back in November, this 19-year-old girl, it was about 4 in the morning. She approached this man's house, was banging on his door, and he fires and kills her. Well, today, that man, Theodore Wafer, was convicted of second-degree murder in that case. Gerald Thurswell is the attorney representing the parents of Renisha. Gerald, thank you for joining us this evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time. Now, you, well, first of all, how have her parents been dealing with the case as it's been unfolding?
Oh, it's been horrible. They're waiting and waiting and waiting for this day to come. It's been 9 months. And now they have some closure. Now it's all over. The person responsible for their daughter's death has been convicted of second-degree murder, and he faces a possible sentence of life imprisonment now.
Okay, now remind us, it was November 2nd when this incident occurred. What exactly happened? What do we know about why Renisha was at his door? Tell us the story then.
She had been involved in a car accident earlier in the evening. She had sustained a concussion. She was dazed. She was walking around. She sees this house that looks very similar to hers, and she starts knocking on the front door. He gets up, he hears the knocking on the door, and he gets his shotgun. He's got a sawed-off shotgun with a pistol grip that's only used to kill people. It's not a sport rifle. He goes in the closet, he gets it out. He goes to the front door. The front door of his house is made of steel. He's got a steel door that's locked. He doesn't call 911. He doesn't yell out to her, "What do you want?" He takes his shotgun. He takes the safety off. He racks it. He puts the bullet in the chamber. He opens the door, his steel door. He sees her on the porch, and he shoots her through a locked screen door, blows off her head.
Well, that's, did he testify in the case?
Yes. Initially, he had claimed that the gun went off by accident, that there was something wrong with the trigger, and he just he touched the trigger and the gun went off. His attorney had the gun tested, and the trigger was fine. It took pressure to pull the trigger. The prosecution had the gun tested by the Michigan State Police. The trigger was fine. So he had to come up with another defense. So the defense he used at trial was self-defense, and he testified that the knocking on the door scared him. There was such pounding on the door. He was so frightened. Mm-hmm. He testified that he couldn't find his cell phone. So when he couldn't find his cell phone, he took his rifle and went through the procedure that I described earlier. He blew her head off.
His attorney said that the pounding, quote, was getting louder and louder and louder and louder until the floors started vibrating, the walls were shaking, the windows was about to break, the screen door was already broken. Is that how ferocious the pounding was?
Do you believe it? Do you believe I can knock on your front door and make your floors vibrate? Do you really believe that? The bottom line is this: if somebody's trying to break in your house, they want to do it quietly. They want to pry a window open. They want to pry a door open. Anybody who's trying to break in your house doesn't make noise to wake up the neighbors. It was a preposterous defense. He also said that he didn't know if there was one person out there or two. However, after he opened up the steel door and blew her head off, he laid his gun down right in front of the door, left it open, left his gun down in front of the door, and then he went and got his cell phone and called the police. If he was really frightened that there was more than one person out there, as he had testified to, he never would have left his gun on the floor in front of the open door.
I'm talking to Gerald.
It was a preposterous defense, and because he lied and lied repeatedly, that's why the jury came back so fast. It wasn't hard for them to come to this conclusion.
I'm talking to Gerald Thurswell, attorney representing the parents of Renisha McBride, who was killed November 2nd, the man responsible, convicted of second-degree murder today. The racial factor, I mean, he was a white man, she was a young black woman. Was that a factor, do you think, in the shooting?
I don't believe it was a factor in the shooting. However, there were 8 white people on the jury and 4 blacks. And the defense attorney, in arguing the case and in questioning Wafer, said to him, tried to use some buzzwords to make it a racial case. I really believe she tried to do that to influence the 8 white jurors.
What do you mean buzzwords?
I'll tell you. She said, she asked him, "Well, Ted, the neighborhood was changing, wasn't it? And people were moving out of their homes, weren't they?" And that's a buzzword. The neighborhood is changing. People are moving out. I thought that was really improper to introduce race into the case. That was during the questioning of waiver. And then when she gave her closing argument, although race had never been mentioned at all, never, she said in her closing argument, well, I want you to know that race wasn't a factor in this case. If race wasn't a factor, why do you mention it? It really wasn't. And
now you're convinced of that. Okay, you're convinced that race was not a factor, but he did not know her. So, how do you explain his decision to shoot her?
Okay, what had happened was about a month before, some kids had shot his car with a paintball gun, and when the kids shot his car with a paintball gun, that's when he decided to keep his gun loaded. Prior to that, the gun was not loaded. Once his car was shot with the paintball, he said that he was angry about that. He was mad. And in the police, or I think at the police station, they asked him, what happened this night? Remember the banging and everything? He said, I went to the front door and I was mad. I was mad. I was full of, to quote him, I was full of piss and vinegar. Mm-hmm. So his testimony to the police that was videotaped was inconsistent with the testimony that he gave at trial that he shot her in self-defense. Remember I said earlier, he said the gun went off by accident, and during the interview he said he was full of piss and vinegar and mad, and then all of a sudden at the time of trial, it's self-defense. He was scared that somebody was going to break into his house and hurt him.
Did he live alone?
He lived alone. He was single. I think he was 55 years of age, never been married, lived alone.
Now this happened in Wayne County. What is the impact on the community with this kind of a ruling?
Well, I think this. You know, people always think if somebody is breaking into your house that you can use your gun and kill them. Well, if somebody's breaking into your house and you can get them out of your house without shooting them, then you got to get them out of your house without shooting them. You have to use the type of force that would be necessary to protect yourself. In this case, she wasn't even breaking into the house. There was no evidence that she was breaking into the house. She was knocking on the door. He opened the door and confronted her. If he could call 911, why did he yell through the door? I called 911, get away from my house. I've got a shotgun here, get away from my house. He had so many alternatives other than opening the door and blowing her head off.
Did he show remorse? Was he crying? What was his state when he was talking about it?
Very interesting that you asked that. It's a great question. At the time of trial, he got all choked up and he showed remorse, and he said he felt sorry for her family and that he took the life of a 19-year-old girl. However, when he was at the police station 3 hours afterwards, he showed absolutely no remorse. You could hear him talking. His voice was fine. He was talking to the police officers about his van and that he uses his van to take his kayak up north to Tawas, Michigan to go kayaking. This is 3 hours after he blows her head off, and he sees her head is blown off on his porch. There wasn't remorse after he killed her while he was at the police station, but at the time of trial, he gets all choked up. And the defense attorney, the prosecutor said, oh, in front of the jury, you're showing emotion, but at the police station, you had no emotion?
The actual reason then for her being on his porch, you say that it was due to a car accident. Was it near her home then this occurred?
No, the car accident happened, I think, about a mile from his house. But his house, the front of his house, if you looked at pictures of the front of his house and you look at the front of pictures of her own home, they look almost identical. Same picture window, same type of front door, same roof, same colored brick. She was dazed and she was confused, and she knocked on that door and...
You represent her parents. Are they in any way ready or going to be able to forgive him for what happened here?
I think that they're very satisfied that he was convicted of second-degree murder and faces a possible sentence of life in prison. They're very happy with that. Let's put it that way.
Do they have other children?
They have one other daughter who's, as we speak, is pregnant.
And is there going to be a civil suit of some kind over this? Or?
There may very well be, but I don't know the outcome of that. I would think that he spent about all of his money in defending this case.
It's Gerald Thurswell. He represents the attorney representing Renisha McBride's parents. Renisha murdered November 2nd, 4:30 One last thing, the phone. You said he couldn't find his phone.
He said that he was lying down and he couldn't find his cell phone when he heard the knocking. He said he crawled around the floor, and where he usually keeps the phone, he couldn't find it. He couldn't find it. However, testimony was elicited from him. Where do you keep the phone when you're dressed? And he said, in my pant pocket. Well, after you shot and blew off her head, where did you find your phone? In my pant pocket in the bathroom where I had taken off my pants. So, interestingly enough, he didn't look at the place that he usually and customarily keeps his phone.
It's Gerald Thurswell again. Gerald, thank you for telling us the story and what happened today. Thank you.
God bless you. Take care. Bye-bye.
6:43 on a Thursday. Michael Cohen.